One of the most dangerous and harmful trait in any human being is fault finding. Oftentimes, we don't even realize how harmful fault finding can be. Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra says, unfailing fault finding situates life in the enigma of failure. Talking about the harmful effect of fault finding, Sri Thakur Nukul Chandra says, this is very true. Whenever the tendency grows to see another's fault, then that fault has made its home in you. Then and there, without delay, that evil tendency should be smashed and swept away. Then you are safe, otherwise, all will be destroyed. In his book Chalar Sathi, Sri Thakur Ankul Chandra says, if fault is to be found, it has to be contemplated. It has to be brought out by thinking it over. And with that, one is to keep awake a sense of irritation or hostility. And in doing this, just such feelings will be stored in the brain. You will find how after some days you are acting out those faults. So be careful of fault finding, of contemplating faults, and of irritation and hostility. So, what happens when we try to find fault with others? We first think about it, we first contemplate on it, we think it over, we ignite a sense of irritation or hostility within us. And such feelings get stored in our brain, and in no time we start acting out such faults ourselves unconsciously. Let's listen to a story to understand this better. One day, two monks were on a journey. They were walking on their path and they came across a river. In the river, water was flowing with very strong current. They found a young, beautiful lady standing at the riverside and thinking of crossing the river. But she is scared of crossing the river because the water has very strong current. Seeing the two monks, the young lady requested them if they can help her cross the river. The two monks looked at each other for a few seconds. They are monks, and as per their spiritual practice, they are not supposed to touch women. How can they help her? But within a few seconds, the senior monk lifted the young lady with both his hands and crossed the river. On the other side, he set her down and then started walking. The younger monk was surprised, angry, irritated. How can the senior monk do this? He is a monk. He is not supposed to touch women. How could he touch this lady? This younger monk was absolutely disturbed. He was not speaking a word. Both of them were walking in absolute silence. An hour passed, couple of hours passed, some more time passed. The young monk could not resist this anymore. He looked at the senior monk and asked him, brother, how could you do this? How could you touch this woman? We are not supposed to touch women. We are monks. The senior monk looked at the younger one and said, I have dropped her long back, but looks like you are still carrying her in your mind. But I have dropped her long back. Dear friends, this story from Buddhist literature talks a lot about fault finding. The younger monk supposedly found out a fault in the senior monk that drove him crazy. He got mad. He was wild in anger. And this is exactly what fault finding does to us. It creates irritation within us. It creates hostility within us. It creates anger within us. Talking about another harmful effect of fault finding, Sri Thakur Ankul Chandra says, if your eyes see only others' evil, you will never be able to love anyone. If one makes fault finding one's habit, one cannot love anyone. Friends, there are some people who always find fault. They're never happy in any situation. They're always unhappy. They always keep cribbing, complaining, finding fault. There are another set of people for their own condition and circumstances, they blame others. If they don't have a good job, they blame their parents for not sending them to a good school or university. If the parents send them to a good university, they blame the teachers for not teaching them well. If they don't do well in their career, they blame their boss or their employers. If they do not succeed in a project they're leading, they blame all other members of the project. If they don't do well in the examination, they blame the assessor or evaluator. They always find fault with others and they blame others for the situation they're in, for the circumstances they're in. They never look inside to find their own fault. They never take responsibility for their success. They never take responsibility for taking charge of their life. Many such people always want to be a part of the problem. They never want to be a part of the solution. When they complain about a problem, if you ask them to find a solution, they drift away, they retreat, they backtrack because they do not want to put the effort in to find a solution. They want to be a part of the problem so that they can keep cribbing and complaining all the time. So, what is the way out? How to overcome this fault finding attitude? Sri Thakur Kulchandra says, the moment you realize that you have this tendency, smash it away, drive it away at once, without delay. He also says, at first, try with all your might to find good in what you see and breed this habit in your very bones. Whatever you see, in whatever situation you are in, whatever you are experiencing, try to see the good in that. Make that your habit. He says to spread good of others makes one's own nature good unconsciously.